The accessibility breakdown by inclusion impact accessibility.
Hey, welcome to the Accessibility Breakdown. I am Mark, and this is
Justin.
Every week we pay tribute to those who stand out to us as leading by accessibility by picking 3 topics that strike us in some way. This week, we're going to talk about online retail accessibility is failing disabled customers. Yes, we're going to be talking about this again. If you've been in the industry for a while, this is a topic that seems not to want to go away. So we've got an interesting article by Claire McDonald on this, and then her article is based on research by a company called Nexer, Nexer, and they did a study called The Hidden Journey, Missed Revenue Opportunities and Recommendations for Responsible Retailers. So we're wrapping those two into that one discussion, and they're tied together. The next thing we're going to talk about is Innovation Track, where the future of accessibility comes to life. And this is a CSUN, a couple things that CSUN, for those of you who are familiar, know that CSUN is the California State University. And it's also a huge accessibility, assistive technology, specifically conference that happens every year. So Justin and I, it's kind of our the big deal every year where we go and meet a lot of people that we are great friends with and that do this work. And that it was our first episode was about our trip to CSUN. And this is sort of something new and very, very cool that they're doing. And then the third topic is, are we witnessing the slow death of the PDF? And this is by Mac Clemens, and it's a interesting, somewhat trenchant, not surprising look at kind of where PDFs fit or don't fit, as the case may be, in this modern web landscape. So we're going to start with this online retail discussion here. So the two things here are Claire McDonald's online retail accessibility is failing disabled customers. And she pulled this article, which her article is a great article to go to because it really summarizes all this. But she pulls it from this big kind of thick study, which Justin and I really kind of got into the study. But I don't know that that's what everybody's going to want to look at. But if you kind of want to see some of the raw power behind the numbers and the things that Claire talks about in her article, and she links to it as well. There's a really interesting report called The Hidden Journey, Missed Revenue Opportunities and Recommendations for Retailers by Nexer, is very interesting to dig into. But so the whole reason I wanted to talk about this is because 13 years ago when I got into accessibility, a great part of the work that we were doing was to help make retail sites accessible. And this was back in the kind of days of Target, the big Target lawsuit that drove accessibility, and that there was a couple of kind of retail related things that changed the view on whether or not you needed a physical location as a nexus for online sales. And so there's a lot of stuff going on in retail at this time. We've had a lot of lawsuits around it. We've had a lot of, for years, over a decade, there's overlays, which we all know are really Band-Aid solutions. Nothing's automatically fixing your website for accessibility. And then we have organizations out there that have come up with specific solutions and market focuses on just retail. So it was really interesting to me, Justin, to see this article and to look at some of the statistics. Like it says, it found that 81% of disabled shoppers have issues buying online, with 55 things saying things such as navigation of pop-ups are causing a lack of accessibility while browsing retailers. This 81%, this around more than what it was. I don't remember what it was back in the day, but I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I've always heard. And the other percentage that's in here, I don't know if I can pull it up really quickly, but the idea is that shoppers in general that have a hard time on a site abandon it. There's a cart abandonment issues. There's just, I can't get the information I want on the thing I want. I can't add it to the cart. I can't, whatever. And they're out. And people with disabilities are almost double down on that. They get to a site they can't use and they're out. And then when they find something they can use, the loyalty is incredible. So whatever degree the people will abandon stuff for, when they like it, they just stay with it. It is such a powerful market position to be in. It is absolutely shocking to me that this article is not something dredged up from 10 years ago, but this is June 29th, 2026, this article came out. It's now.
Yeah.
So what's going on, Justin? Why are we still talking about this?
Well, there's lots of reasons. But I did feel like when we were when you proposed this article, that we could have started it with, breaking news, accessibility still a problem for retail. Like that would be our clickbait title for this.
Is that really breaking news, right?
Right, exactly. But no, there's so many, I think that it's come a long way, especially for the major retailers, your Targets, your Walmarts, your Amazons, like those major retailers. I feel like they've come a long way. I think they don't get into the data in the Nexer report, like who they actually, like what were the sites that were visited, like when were they visited. So it does make me wonder, like, is this like predominantly like small business shops? Is it shops that are maybe on platforms like Wix or some of these other secondary kind of e-commerce sites, like stand-up e-commerce sites? In which case, if we were to go through and kind of look and see, like, oh, actually, 40% of these sites that were visited, these retailers that were visited, are all, Wix sites. Then, wow, if we just go to Wix and we fix them, like, boom, 40% taken care of. Everyone's accessible. We just up that margin, that quickly. I don't know. Like, that's one of those things where you just don't get into that level of data or who to approach or, that sort of stuff. But
I think that's a good point. I mean, it's like, if we look at a lot of these companies that have specialized in the accessibility of retail sites, they'll say things like, we do Shopify, right? We focus on the accessibility of sites written on top of Shopify or something like that. So, that's a really good question. Is it like the Shopify sites are all set, but there's still so many things off of something like Shopify? And this is not a statement. This is just like making your point, right? I tend to think it's a little bit of everything, right? Like, it's probably, there's still a lot of sites on these major platforms that haven't gone through this process. It's probably a little bit of people have chosen shortcut solutions, whatever those might be. And also that I think the one and done probably has a lot to do with it, where 4 or 5 years ago, a major retailer may have dug deep into accessibility, but they didn't integrate it into their everyday practices. They haven't continued to have audits annually or whatever the case may be. They haven't educated their content teams, their development teams, their QA teams properly. They don't have accessibility integrated into their purchasing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in those cases, it's gone down. Because I'll tell you, Justin, like, I did a lot of major retail sites. I also did a lot of, like, hey, we sell pet supplies, and that's our thing, like a boutique pet supply. I did a ton of those over the past more than a decade and still do, and it's so I think it's a lot of we haven't done it yet. We did it and we're not integrated yet. And we didn't, you know, we didn't like the cost of doing it the right way. So we did some other solution that just turns out is still frustrating customers.
Yeah.
It's gotta be a little bit of everything.
It's oh yeah. Well, I mean, you can, the number you look at, let's say, we'll just generic large retailer. Um, no matter who it is, I guarantee you that there are far more developers working on that site than there are QA and
Hmm.
even less people working focused on accessibility. A
Yeah.
lot of those companies, rather than going to, you know, vendors for consultants for accessibility testing, that sort of stuff, a lot of them are bringing those things in house, but their teams are still fairly small, and it's a battle.
Right.
It's speed to market, pushing the market. Yeah, we'll focus on that in Q2, Q3 instead, um, instead of making it a driving force that, we're going to establish uh, accessibility. It's going to be a core competency for all of our developers. It's being driven by vice president of information technology, or
Right.
whatever it is. At that top-down leadership that we always talk about.
Set accessibility, maturity,
Yeah.
leadership down, looking at the whole organization processes, procedures. I mean, we're seeing so much of that right now. Like you and I see it a lot in higher education with Title II and HHS that, which those deadlines have been moved. But the questions that we get as consultants are not like, they are like, hey, we need this audited, right? Like, but it's more like, how do we do this? How do we deal with this edge stuff? Like, to use a cliche, we see them sort of getting into the weeds because they're afraid of the consequences if not. And a lot of them also just want to make sure that their students have good experiences. And I think that it's no different for retail, that it's not as simple as like, let's audit our site, let's run some scans, that you have to be looking at from the leadership down. You have to be looking at the whole organization and make sure that it's included. And you can't ignore the third party part of it as well. Like I think that third party comes in with an authority that causes leadership to pay attention. Certainly, you have a much more well-regarded VPAT when it's produced by an objective third party. And
If
when it
only
pulls
there was.
in-house, it's easier to push those people off. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
But if only there was an international standard out there that helped an organization maybe design for all people.
you mean like EN 1716-1?
You
And or
remember.
or guide you were testing me. You were testing me. I know.
Yes.
So we should take a pause here and say we've been off for a couple of weeks, just summer schedule and stuff like that. So I should have forgotten that, but I didn't. Um, but it's also EN 1716-1, and what where I'm an invited expert on the accessibility maturity model. That is why those things like that, and I think those
Hmm.
are the two sort of leading predominant things right now, are where now that organizations have come in and done audits and maybe done a few things for integration, maybe they're scanning on a regular basis, all good stuff, really turning their attention to the maturity of the organization itself. And we're of course speculating. We're looking at this as longtime accessibility people and being like, oh my gosh, why are we still talking about this? And why are the percentages and numbers the same as they were years ago? So all this is speculation on our part in terms of why that might be. So don't take any of that as like what's actually going on. What's going on is these numbers are what they are, and that hasn't changed a whole lot. And that there's still a significant amount of frustration. And by the way, let's not forget about the curb cutout effect. If this frustration is happening with people with disabilities, this is
Hmm.
retail across the board,
Yeah.
can be a better
When the
experience for everyone.
And I mean, just what's the customer service thing? When one person doesn't like something, they tell 10 friends, and then those 10 friends tell 10 friends. I mean,
This is a shampoo commercial from the 80s. Yes. That's where that came.
really?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the shampoo, but it starts off with a single frame, and there's a woman that's really happy with her hair, and she said, "I use blah, 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 my hair," and then I told my friend, and they told their friends, and that the whole
Yeah,
screen fills up with a little tiny square. Yeah. So yes, this is exactly like shampoo. So write that down.
which you can also buy through retail.
Which you could buy through retail. Yeah. How are you going to have a
Right
good
back in the
experience with
circle.
shampoo if you can't buy it through retail? Um, yeah. And then, so both of you and I kind of like breezed through because we sort of got into the report.
Yeah, and
Um,
the cool part, I think for me, the cool part of the report was there is an entire section in here. So there's an executive summary and all the fun things,
yeah.
but there is a barriers to access
Yeah.
section in
Section
section
three.
3 of the report.
Mm-hmm.
And what I thought was actually cool about this was they actually looked at the specific areas of the e-commerce retail kind of user experience or the user journey and looked at it from like the actual browsing for a product,
Mm-hmm.
selecting a product, purchasing a product, paying for the checkout process for a product, and then kind of the after checkout process. And then they focused on the specific problems, like where were the specific off ramps during each one of those steps. And I thought that was a particularly interesting. I
That's
haven't
really
seen
interesting
that in a
data. Yeah. So I think you bring up a really good point here. The one thing I will say about this report is it has new and interesting data that rewind 10 plus years we weren't seeing. So you and I both, I think, need to dig into this a little bit deeper. And then you also called out that you learned that, what was it, Purple Day? I can't remember what it was
Purple
called.
Tuesday.
Purple Tuesday. Yeah, talk about
Yeah.
Purple Tuesday.
So Purple Tuesday, and hold on, I'm going to bring it up because I don't want to butcher this because it's too.
I was always trying to find it too. That's why he passed it off to you.
So Purple Tuesday, it's a little bit like it's like Small Business Saturday. Kind of it happens typically in November, but it is a time where um, the let me I got it up here. Uh, Purple Tuesday is an initiative that helps organizations take real practical steps to improve the disabled customer experience. It was
That's pretty
launched in
cool.
2018 with one clear goal to turn accessibility into action. So, kind of, it says think Black Friday, but instead of discount codes, we're talking about inclusive practices. It typically
Is
happens in November leading up to like the Black Friday, Christmas holiday shopping season. And it's a way to focus in on, you know, making sure that persons with disabilities have access and can shop and do all the things that everyone else trying to, you know, uh, to buy things for their loved ones or people that they don't like, get to do that as well. Started in the UK. Anyway, this is one of those like things where like you read one article, it leads you to another article, and that article leads you off to a third article. So yeah, Purple Tuesday seems like a really cool
so
thing.
like
And
like shampoo?
yes, if the articles were people shampooing their hair, then yes, it led from one shampoo to the next.
Got it. All right. Everything leads back to shampoo. The So was there any information, like, is Purple Tuesday something that happens in the US as well? Is it over in Europe only right now, or is that just not addressed?
I think it
Because
got
if it's
started. It just got started in the UK. Um, so I don't think I've ever seen it in the
I haven't seen
US,
it either. We need to
but
advocate for it this year and see if we can
yeah,
get it
definitely
going in
something
the
to put on
US.
our calendar
Everybody help
to
us. All accessibility companies, let's make a big deal out of Purple Tuesday this year, even if you're in the US, and let's just see if we can make this a thing across the board.
that'd be awesome.
All right. Well, Claire, thank you so much for your article that brought us to that summarizes this great. That's actually, like I said, the first place I would go if you're interested in this. And
Hmm.
then we appreciate you linking out to Nexter's report, Nexer's Nexer, Nexer's report, and then Nexer. I did a little research on them. They're kind of an interesting dev company. Thank you for doing this report. Really good stuff. Let's jump over to this CSUN. It was almost like a news thing that they put out, or like a press release sort of thing they put out. And it's on the innovation track where the future of accessibility comes to life. So talk to us about that.
Yeah. So it looks like next year at CSUN, they are going to be offering a separate innovation track. That innovation track is going to feature not only sessions, but there's going to be what they're describing as an innovation pavilion.
Mm,
This is going to be a place where innovators that submit a specific uh, tool or concept or idea to CSUN will have a space called out where um, you can go and see their session so you can see them present on their particular topic or idea. There will be an innovation challenge so that there will be an overview following the keynote where people can go and kind of look at these. You can vote on which innovation challenge is kind of the most interesting, in which case there will be an award recipient. And then there also give the innovators a place where they can do on-site research and user experience testing. Um, but what's really neat about this is that to me, it's kind of smelled a little bit. I use smell kind of weirdly here, but it kind of smelled to me a little bit like CSUN's starting to kind of get into like a little bit of an incubator
mm-hmm.
esque place where they're not necessarily setting up like an incubation and throwing money at these folks, but they're giving them a place to say, "Hey, come here, present your new um, technology idea concept around assistive technology, and talk about it. Be around the people that are going to be able to really push back on." They're going to let them talk to vendors. They're going to put them in a room with other companies and things that'll help push back and provide them information on it. So it sounds like a really, really neat idea.
Yeah. So I agree with you. And I think that, I don't know how I've been going to CSUN for 13 years. You've been going for longer
Not
about that. I don't
continuously,
know.
but for
Yeah.
probably about
I,
that long.
yeah. I missed a couple here and there for whatever reasons, pandemic and a
Mhm.
couple other, but, and, what I like about this, and I think CSUN's always done this to a degree, is that they're evolving, right? That they're saying it's been such a great platform for assistive technologies, for vendors of assistive technologies. A lot of the big players sort of kind of dominate it, right now. And it's in like any conference, there's a lot of like, here's our services, here's what we're about, here's why you should use us. But there's also a lot of innovative things that show up at
Mhm.
CSUN. They're just sort of like once they're baked and ready to go. I'm really impressed that they're coming in and saying, what else can we do with this conference? And I love the idea of it being more of a collaborative, having this more collaborative thing. And I will say that I was just at CVent, which is CVent is a technology that is for conferences, right? So all the fancy stuff that you do, the little app you have so you can see the schedule and connect with people and, anything and everything else you can think of around a conference, Events does. And they do all the software associated with CSUN because they're very, very accessible. I would argue the most accessible solution out there. And I ran into Andrew Elkins, who is the event and marketing manager of the CSUN conference. So I literally was just chatting with him yesterday as it was, or the day before yesterday. Fantastic individual, and me and Stephen Kuchings, who is part of CVent, CSUN and CVent. I know it gets confusing, but we were just talking about
Not
how much
connected,
not connected, not well, sort of connected.
sort of connected.
But we were just talking about how much we enjoy CSUN, and what a great conference it is, particularly for people like us. But I think that it is, for folks like us, in a really wonderful way, it's sort of the same thing year after year, just just with a level up of what is going on in accessibility at that, at that given time. This is a really cool move, I think, to uh, offer something different and what's really needed, and to push it from, hey, this is what we do, to this is where we could go if we all put our heads together. So really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited about this. I'm excited to see how it turns out, how it goes. Um, Definitely I will be next year at CSUN, I will be making a beeline for that pavilion. I want to see what's there,
What's going
uh,
on? Yeah.
what's going on. If you're watching this, listening to this, and you hear and you're interested, the registration for the if you want to participate as an innovator, that innovation track opens on August 13th. Um, so that's coming up within the next about a month from now.
Do it.
Yeah.
I hope that I hope there's tons of participation.
Yeah. With the way
Uh,
technology is moving now, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that can go.
mhm.
So I'm really excited to see. That's I kind of wish that I had the time and the capacity right now to think of something,
Well,
but at the same time, I'm like, no, no, I want to see
well,
what other
here's
people do.
well, that's right. But here's why CSUN's the right place for this. Because one of the things that we see is we see people come up with these great ideas that have already been done, right? Because they're new to the industry or whatever the case is. And that's all well and good. But what I would say is do your research and see if the thing that's your good idea is already out there or not. Because if it is, that'll maybe move you on to the next good idea and get you to a place where, you could find something just completely useful and disruptive in the industry. So CSUN has both of those things. If you want to know what's out there already, you're going to see that at CSUN. And then if you want to know in pressure test the ideas that you have, now you're going to have that at CSUN as well. And I will tell you that this young kid out of Harvard walked up to, did I tell you this story already? I probably
No,
should
no,
just.
I was literally going to say this exact same thing.
Okay. So this young kid from Harvard years ago at CSUN walks up to me with his backpack on, and he says, I have a weird question for you. And he asks me, uh, I won't get into the details of it because I don't want to get too boring here, but he asked me, why does the industry not do this? And I had some explanation for him, which I think he appreciated, but I think he heard my explanation and went like, okay, that's permission to keep moving forward. And I didn't think about it anymore. And then 2 or 3 years later at CSUN, Mike Breville, I think is how you say his last name, shows up. He's got a company called Test Party, and he's doing a new and disruptive, innovative thing. Um, in so the fertilizer for that kind of innovation, that fertilizer for that kind of innovation already existed at CSUN. This is just a great formalization of it to really, I think, launch it off. That's
Well,
my feeling.
if you go back to the trash can conversation
Mm.
from
Oh,
episode
yeah.
one, like we met this woman from
PhD student.
PhD student from Notre Dame / University of Washington, and she was working on some really great stuff. Like this is exactly who should that's for. So I do kind
Mm-hmm.
of like when I read this, I was kind of wondering like, ooh, I wonder if someone picked up, like if she talked to enough people that they picked up on it. They're like, you know what? We should set up a center of innovation. Like,
That's a
let's
good thought.
do something.
It's it's the expansion of the trash can discussion.
Exactly. Exactly.
And the reason, if you go back to our first episode on CSUN, you can hear this whole story. So I'm not going to bore it with you again. But this discussion that Justin's talking about started because I bumped into this young woman that's the PhD student at a trash can, and she literally turned to me and she's like, "Can I ask you a question?" Because she heard me talk. I was with a couple of other people and we were talking about accessibility, and then I brought her to Justin, and blah, 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 just exploded into this whole thing. Go back and listen to it on the episode 1. But that's it. I think you and I should take credit for this. It's the trash can. Somebody, you know what? Somebody listened to the trash can story on our podcast, and that's why they're doing this, Justin. I know it. I can
Well,
just feel it. That's what happened.
okay.
All right. We're
You're
kidding. It
much
was
better at marketing.
somebody. Yeah, it's somebody smarter than us that came up with this. I'm going to tell you that right now. Um, all right, so let's dive into our last one here. Are we witnessing the slow death of the PDF? And when I told you about this, yeah, you that's your reaction. You're like, I hope so. So this is interesting to me. And if you look at it right now, there's so many companies coming out with like in air quotes AI solutions, and some of them are pretty good, that are trying to make PDFs accessible.
Hmm.
But because of Title II and all these things that we've talked about, but when it comes down to it, they're literally like, I think of a PDF and I'm like, the next step below a PDF is a piece of paper, right? It's so old. It's so antiquated. It's kind of this stuck in the mud solution. And I think, in
Like you're
reading
gonna
this
send
article,
Adobe's market share down a point just with that
yeah,
statement.
no, it's no dig on Adobe. I mean, the PDF's around because people still are using it and want it. And I think that a large part of the reason why that is, I mean, there's an antiquated aspect to PDFs, but there's also a reason why they've been around and have been being used for all these years, right? There's kind of two sides to that coin. And I think one of the reasons, and this is in this article by Matt Clemens sort of says this along the way, but one of the reasons is that we deal with a lot of different document types. You've got documents, you've got Excel spreadsheets, you've got PowerPoints, you've got all sorts of stuff. And it's like when you just want to get things into a format, regardless of what that source is, this PDF's been a pretty good answer in terms of let's turn it to a PDF. And then you can have a pile of things that are PDFs and it doesn't matter what the source document was. Everything kind of drops down into this PDF. But the article is making the point that PDFs aren't very usable in this highly technical day of HTML. And we're so used to interacting with things with HTML. We're so used to things being able to show up on our mobile phone really well. And, with a PDF, you're kind of doing this weird zoom out, you know, uh, trying to see it. It gets big. It doesn't reformat to that smaller portal size. You're scrolling all over the place when you're
Good
dealing
way
with
to
it on.
explain how low vision users navigate.
Yeah, I mean we haven't even got into the accessibility discussion yet around
Yeah,
PDFs, right? But you're right. I mean, never mind
it's a
if you have low
similar
vision and
experience. That's what we're all doing.
that's what we're all doing. Yeah, so that's actually a good point, right? That this kind of like if you get frustrated with the experience of a PDF on your phone, because it's kind of like the more you zoom out, which you need to do, or yeah, zoom out, zoom in, which you need to do half the time to see the PDF, the more you're looking through a straw and the more it's difficult to keep track of where you are. And this is that you're getting a small taste of the frustration that a person with low vision has when they try to zoom into anything. That's a great point, Justin. But anyways, HTML, we are all now very used to the functionality of HTML, the ability HTML has to reorganize itself for our portal sizes, not just be zoomed into. And the author Mac makes this argument that in observation that we should be and kind of are slowly moving to HTML instead of, which can be a catch-all, right? Instead of PDF, and that it's much, much more accessible. And I think that this to me really highlights if you pay attention to the accessibility, you create a better experience for everyone. So we just talked about how frustrating this experience can be for people without disabilities on their phones, just the clunkiness of a PDF on the computer. So if we didn't have to deal with them anymore and they went to HTML, that would make all of us happy. And then particularly if that HTML is made accessibly. So this sort of solution for accessibility um, is a solution for everyone. And because of Title II, because of HHS, um, people are looking more and more into how do we create a document that's more easily to make accessible and to sustain the accessibility of it, because it's also expensive for organizations now to maintain and deal with PDFs.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean,
Did I cover everything, Justin, and you have nothing to say?
no, you
Okay,
you
go
covered
ahead.
everything, and I think it's one of the things that they kind of push back on is there's people that it was really kind of more focused at like governments, like municipalities, cities, state governments, that sort of thing, not like um, nations. Um, but this idea of governments, like, oh, you got to pay for subscriptions. You might have to do this. You might have to, you
Hmm.
might have to buy something. What does procurement for that look like? And, it's easier to just throw something in a PDF and kind of call it a day. Um, and be like, yep, box checked. There's a way to do
Hmm.
that. Um, but the cost to remediate that, it's probably going to be more expensive than it is to purchase the subscription for a year
Right.
for a form, somebody to come in and say, oh, you created that as a PDF. We're going to create that as this. It's going to be hosted here as part of a service, and it's N amount of dollars per year. And now you don't have to maintain the PDF. It's accessible. You don't have to remediate it. So you don't have to deal with someone taking in managing the fax machine, managing the email, all these
Hmm.
things. We'll capture all the stuff for you. I mean,
What happens when you want to make a change?
what happens when you want to make a change? You want to add a new field? What happens if someone already had the previous version of the PDF downloaded? I mean, there's lots of benefits to moving to the web.
Yeah, for sure. And we see it like with some of our customers who, within one organization, you'll have people going like, we need to get out of this PDF thing. It's difficult to maintain, to sustain. It costs the organization a lot of money to do. But then you have people within that organization that are used to PDFs, tied to PDFs, that don't want to give up PDFs. So, and again, that is a testament to what somebody created years ago. I want to say the PDF started in the 90s, like early web days. Like I can remember when I was putting stuff on a iOmega zip drive, people talking about PDFs and everybody going, "What does PDF stand for?" You know,
Hmm. Now you got to
um,
tell people what an iOmega zip drive was.
I know, but it's in case you're wondering if I was an old man, now you know.
I guess they
Yeah,
were
so
cool.
iOmega, that was think of an 8-track tape if you want a visual of this thing. It was pretty close. Maybe like a little, like if you were making a movie and you wanted like you wanted a futuristic looking 8-track tape, you would come up with this iOmega zip drive. And there were these big like things you would pop them into, and they held, I can't remember, that like 250K or something. I think they got to like a megabyte, and that was like a big deal. Like the 1 megs zip drives were a big deal back then. I mean, stuff that was like, if you don't have something on your keychain that's 100 times that right now, at least, like you
Yeah,
can
right.
just, you know,
So
your phone, right? Your phone its capacity is a bazillion times bigger than that. So,
yeah,
anyways, but
absolutely.
that was,
So PDF came out in 1993
yeah,
and became an open standard in 2008.
yeah. So I was publishing a magazine, and we were moving the pre-press files of the magazine around on an iOmega disk drive around that time.
Yeah,
So that makes sense.
all right.
Yeah, we weren't putting it to PDF. I don't think. Maybe we converted to PDF and put it on that thing, because you were trying to get it. Still was not a lot of information. I mean, still not a lot of space for the information, but
Yeah, but I
and
mean,
literally driving it. There was no like, we'll email, we'll send this to you, or can we upload it? It was, I literally took it off my computer on these things and drove it to the pre-press place and said, here is the zip disk. Go do your thing.
yeah.
So,
But the whole point behind PDF was that it was a portable format.
mhm.
So you could the same file could be displayed on Windows, at the time, OS2 Warp,
Mhm.
Mac. Those were the early days of the Macs. Um, Not OS X yet. We were still back on pre-Mac days. So yeah, I mean, it was a different time, and so it was at the time
And
it was a
ahead of
great
its time.
technology.
Yeah, and ahead of its time. And this is
Wow, yeah.
2026, man, and we're still using it. So it's just I don't. It's impressive. It really is impressive.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
um, it's definitely providing challenges for folks today. All right. Well, I think we did it. We got through all three of them, Justin. Congratulations. Is
Yeah.
there anything else that you want to add about PDFs or anything else?
No, other than um, I'll miss them when they're gone. I'll
And
pour one out.
like we said at the beginning, let's get this Purple Tuesday thing going
Yeah.
everywhere. We got it, and we need all the accessibility companies out there, right? You know who you are, right? Let's band together and like make a big deal out of it. Accessibility. I was gonna say accessibility. It's Purple Tuesday. You have to remind me about that I said we were going to do that, Justin. All right. Well, thank you once again. And now that we have broken down accessibility for you, we hope you go forth and keep it accessible.
Thank you for listening to the Accessibility Breakdown by Inclusion Impact Accessibility.